this presentation in the chat box. So this provides you with an overview of the MST in History of Art and Visual Culture. As all the MSTs, it's designed for people who want to study at postgraduate level and who are keen to develop really high level sort of deep dive skills in history of art and visual culture. And it runs over 2 years, but it's part-time, and the dates for the next intake are shown here for your interest. And it involves 6 taught modules over the first year, and then a year of your own dissertation. So you're working on your own research with a supervisor, an expert in the field, and that's your second year essentially. So in the first year, you have 3 residential teaching blocks. These are quite sort of intense teaching times when you're with the rest of the cohort. And in the second year, apart from your one-to-one meetings with your expert supervisor, you'll have 3 day schools, which are opportunities to get together with a cohort and share progress on your research, share challenges that you've come up with in the course of your research, and to generally sort of bounce ideas off people who are studying the same subject. The qualification gives you 180 credits at Master of Studies level, and the deadline for this year is the 2nd of April. I get a lot of emails asking whether it's beneficial to get an application in before that time, and I always say no, not necessarily. So you do really have up until the 2nd of April to send in your applications. So you've got time to think about your applications properly. So just to tell you a little bit, I've already said a bit about how it's taught, but also how we assess the course. So as I said, the first taught year is taught in these teaching blocks, as we call them, these 4-day, very intensive periods, one time every term of the year. And these sessions include lectures, expert sessions in museums and libraries in Cambridge, seminars where you can offer your own sort of views and opinions and ask the experts questions. And 2 modules will be studied side by side each term. One of the modules is more sort of knowledge based. It's sort of where you learn about different themes. It's arranged thematically, and I'll tell you what the themes are in a minute. And the other module that you do side by side has a more of a focus on practical skills and how you might become a researcher in that theme, or how you might apply your sort of study skills to your academic work. And those 2 really sit side by side together. I'll give you some examples of that in our discussion later. And each of these modules are assessed in a written assignment of 4,000 to 5,000 words at the end of each term. The second year, as I said, is your dissertation year. So it's your chance really to study and really get to grips with a topic that you're really interested in. And it's taught across the year in 5 1-hour, one-to-one supervisions, as we call them in Cambridge, a sort of meeting or discussion, an academic discussion, I suppose you could describe the supervision as, and that's with an expert in the field, so it's a specialist supervisor. And as I said, this year also includes a 3-day schools to catch up with your cohort and to share the pain perhaps of working on your own on a big project, but also to sort of keep you enthused and to keep you supported as well by your tutors. And at the end of that second year, you produce a 12,000 to 15,000 word dissertation. And so that's what it's sort of culminating in. And to tell you a little bit about the thematic strands, which will be in the next intake. Term 1, I am co-directing this term with Dr. Christina Faraday, and this is thinking across media. So it's about this sort of very current academic interest in intermediality, and thinking about how different media, so texts or music or visual media, interact with and across each other. And that sort of goes from the medieval period roughly to sort of Baroque. And so chronologically, actually, sort of is those are the earliest things and objects that you'll study. Term 2, I co-direct with Dr. Lorna Dillon and, Dr. Lucy Whelan, and this is art in the environment, and also including lots of current sort of academic, the latest academic sort of interest and debate on art and the environment, and especially ecology as well. And then in term 3, I work with Dr. Lorna Dillon on the visual cultures of activism. Dr. Dillon has very active interests in craft and feminism, and so it really does take us to the current day in terms of the chronology of the course. But in each of the different themes, you also get a chance to apply the methods and the approaches and the ideas to your own research interests as well. So you're not only learning about these themes, but you're also learning about how to apply them and how to expand your own interests and your own knowledge in your own field of interest. The requirements for this course, and I'm sure that we'll have lots of questions on this and we can talk about this in a minute. Normally applicants will have achieved a UK 2-1 and an honours degree, or the overseas equivalent, of course, and this would usually be in a subject in the arts and humanities, normally a subject where you are learning essay skills, or you have written essays or a long dissertation even. But there is provision, of course, at ICE to accept non-standard applicants, and this may involve you having worked professionally, perhaps in the art world or with objects or with art history, perhaps in your job for a number of years, and that would be equivalent experience to that academic experience. And there is also a language requirement, which we can talk about with colleagues later if anyone has questions about that. The application itself will involve references, academic references usually, although we can sometimes accept, as I said, professional references as well. Transcripts of your qualifications that you may have. The most important thing I would say about the application is your research proposal, and we're going to put up on the website a sort of FAQ about the research proposal and how to put that together, because that's really the most important part of the application, I would say. Thinking about where your idea for your dissertation is going to fit in with the field as you know it, and to think about gaps that you may want to go about filling in your own research, and also give us some idea of how you're going to go about that as well. So that's quite important and something that we would talk about at interview. Your personal statement sort of tells us where your study fits into the rest of your life, and fits why is now a good time to do the MST, and again something we can talk about at interview with you. And the deadline for applications, as I said, is the beginning of April, the very beginning of April, and the interviews will be later in that month. This is a lovely picture of Madingley Hall, which may entice you to come and visit us even. Please do come and visit us anytime, because you can see how beautiful it is. And please also take down my email address and do direct any questions that you have after this session when you've thought about it a bit, or over in the coming weeks and months. Do send me an email if you need any advice about anything that I've said in the presentation. So that's the academic sort of content side of things. covered for now. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague. I think Jonathan is going to talk to this slide.
I'll take this slide.
Sorry, Callie.
No, it's okay. That's okay. You're welcome to, Jonathan, but I'm happy to cover this slide. But yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Callie, and I am part of the student enrolment team here at the Institute of Cambridge. It's really great to see so many of you on the call this evening, and I hope you've enjoyed the session so far. So I'm just going to take up the last few minutes of the webinar just to talk to you all very briefly about the support that myself and my colleagues in the enrolment team can provide you with. But before I do that, I did just want to touch very quickly on some of the funding support that's available to applicants who are applying for the MST in History of Art and Visual Culture. So, we know that for many adult learners, education is a financial investment. So I'm going to share some of the ways that you may be able to access some support to help fund your studies. So just to touch on the first element, as part of submitting your application for the MST, there is a £50 application fee. And here at the university, we are committed to widening access and participation to higher education. And as such, there is an element where some applicants may be exempt from paying this via one of two schemes. And if you do have any questions about your eligibility, then please do let us know. We'll be happy to have a discussion with you around that. But in the meantime, we're going to post a link in the chat for information around exemptions to that application fee. So please feel free to have a look at that in the meantime. So there are also a variety of external funding mechanisms in place, from part-time student loans to military funding, to DSA funding, which is the Disability Students Allowance. And that allowance enables students in the UK to apply for a loan if they have a disability, mental health condition, or any specific learning difference, which will affect their ability to study. And again, we can add a link into the chat so you can have a little look through that in more detail. We are aware that for student loans, that the Student Loan Company in the UK and the Sallie Mae Smart Loans in the US can typically support funding part-time master's programmes. However, if you are looking to apply for a student loan funding outside of these areas, then please do connect with the student loan provider just to ensure that this course can be supported. And then just lastly, on the funding side of things, to enrol onto the course, if you do receive an offer, you will need to make a payment to enrol. So we can support you with putting payment plans in place, as well as, if this is an option for you, adding funds from your employer if they are open to sponsoring you on the course. So myself and my colleagues in the enrolment team, we are more than happy to have conversations with you and discussions with you, and we're really excited to connect with any students that are interested in learning with us here at ICE, and we can support you on your application journey at every stage of the process. So our team have got a wealth of knowledge about the Institute and the courses on offer, and we'd be more than happy to kind of guide you and support you on any queries that you may have when it comes to selecting a course, discussing whether a specific course is suitable for you, or if you do want to go into a bit more detail around the course requirements, we can support you with those conversations. We do know that for some students, the application process can sometimes seem a little bit daunting. But we promise you it isn't. But if you are finding it daunting, we're on hand to support you for every stage if that's something that you would like. We can provide information on the different stages of your application, what needs to be included and what the next steps are, just to make that process as simple as possible for you. So just to kind of wrap up, please do reach out to us. Myself and my colleagues, Kaylee, Kate and Lucy in the enrolment team would love to hear from you on any questions that you may have. And you can reach us using the Contact Us form on our website, and that will come directly to the enrolment team, or you can scan the QR code that's at the bottom right hand side of this slide, and that will take you directly to that form as well. Or please do drop us an email, and you can see our email address at the bottom of the slide, and we'd be happy to have a discussion with you in a bit more detail. So yeah, that's everything from me. We look forward to hopefully hearing from you soon, and also answering any questions that you have in the Q&A. So I think I'm going to hand over to you now, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Callie, and thank you, Lydia. So we'd like to invite you to put your questions in the Q&A. I can see we've got a good number coming in already. So while the questions are coming in, I'll just kick off with a question that we get asked quite frequently. I think maybe, Callie, you might be best placed to answer this. Do I have to take an English language test?
Yes, so Dr. Lydia, you did mention this briefly in your slides, but so applicants for whom English is not their first language will need to submit evidence that they meet the university's English language requirement at the application stage. There is an English language calculator that you can use for general guidance, just to see if you may need to provide a test, and we can share that in the chat, and you can have a little look through that if you want in your own time. But after receiving an application, the admissions team will assess the information that you've provided and will let you know if a test or assessment is required. And just for your information, if a test is required, we can accept IELTS academic, the Cambridge Certificate of Proficiency in English, the Cambridge Certificate in Advanced English, and TEFL, plus a language centre assessment as well. So I don't know if Matt, you have that link, but I'll drop that link into the chat as well if you wanted to have a look at some of the language tests that we do accept.
Fantastic, Kelly. Thank you. There's a couple more questions that I'll come back to you in a moment about, but perhaps I could just ask Lydia if she'll be kind enough to address a question about research. So the question is, what happens if the area of research that I initially identify at the application stage changes early on in the course? Provided there's a suitable supervisor, is it possible to change dissertation topic?
Yes, is the answer to that. Yes, it is possible if there is a suitable supervisor. When we accept you, we like obviously to have a supervisor lined up. So if you change your thoughts and you want to move into a very different area, then it would be dependent on us being able to then find a supervisor, a different supervisor. But it is possible. It does happen occasionally. And I would say the thing that happens most so far has been that people have changed their interest or emphasis in terms of their research question, but they've stuck with the same supervisor because they're still that expert in the field. There are less people who've changed completely in terms of topic, but all that to say that it is possible, but we can't obviously guarantee that anything could be supervised.
Fantastic. Next question is about the themes for year one that you ran through previously. Are these consistent? They stay the same, or might they change?
These ones will stay the same for the next intake. They do change over time depending on what's going on in the world at large, what's going on in academia, and what the sort of current the hot topics are, depending on which experts are in Cambridge or able to work with us in Cambridge. So it depends on a number of factors, but those are the themes that will be there for the 2024 intake.
Fantastic. Questions are flooding in now, so I'm just going to run through a couple. First question is there any specific experience I should have that would benefit my application onto the course?
There's no one experience that we would require everyone to have. It's really quite holistic in the way that we approach each application. So you don't have to have, for example, a degree in art history. You may have one, but you don't have to have one. But then if you didn't have one, we may expect something in a related subject, or as I said earlier, we may expect sort of a substantial amount of professional experience and expertise that you were sort of, you would have to have that to write the research proposal and to think about, what your research is going to focus on, I think. So we take each one on a case-by-case basis, and if you're worried that you don't have enough research or the right sort of qualifications to apply, do drop me an email and I can help you to navigate that.
Fantastic. A couple of questions about the application process and the requirements for what needs to be submitted. Given some people might have a break since they were last in education, is it possible to submit one reference that's not academic, so possibly, I guess, a professional reference? And secondly, could you say a little bit about the actual interview structure And would that be face-to-face or online?
So to talk about the references first, we do require that at least one of them is academic, but we do have sometimes the case that somebody has not been in formal study for decades, and then in that case we would have to again take it on a case-by-case basis, but we do sometimes take professional references as well. Yeah. So again, we're quite flexible, but we need to talk and get to the bottom of what the situation is with you. So it's all sort of quite individually tailored, I would say. But yes, we normally require academic references or relevant professional ones.
And in terms of the interview structure, my understanding that's all entirely
Sorry,
online.
I forgot. Yes, I forgot the next. So interview structure is based on your application. So the application that you submit, so everything that you write in there, we will use as a basis for questioning and discussion to see, you know, where your research idea came from, where you hope it will go, how you see yourself tackling that at Cambridge on the course, you know, why you want to do the course. So we'll have a sort of a more general questioning, and then sort of more specific questioning on the research proposal. That's normally how it goes, and it is online, certainly next iteration anyway.
And a cluster of questions around the research topic. So in terms of identifying a suitable topic, finding a supervisor, knowing whether or not that's a proposal that's been looked at previously, and whether a particular subject area might be appropriate. So could you just talk about, you know, would the best thing be for someone to get in touch with you to talk about that?
Yes, with the proviso that I don't know about every single topic in art history. But what you can do is, if you have a particular passion for something, that will normally have come from some experience that you've had or some prior knowledge that you have, even if it's not a huge amount of prior knowledge, but you will then need to sort of do a little bit of research, essentially do a little bit of scoping on that topic, see what's being written about it, try and find out where exactly your own research might fit in, and have some ideas about sources that you may have access to or you may be able to get access to. You know, what are you thinking about? Have you got objects that you've got access to, whether it's online or in real life? Do you know of any sort of archives or libraries that you might be able to use? Do you have sort of an idea of what's been written on this topic already, and where you can sort of see your ideas fitting in? So to do the research proposal will involve doing a little research in preparation, if you see what I mean. But obviously you're not going to have to write a PhD on this before you hand it in, but you need to know the sort of you know, you need to sort of scope it out beforehand.
Fantastic, thank you. Question about the museum and gallery trips in year one. Could you maybe say a little bit more about, you know, what sort of places you go to and what that involves?
Yeah, so the places we go in Cambridge is very has a very rich collection of museums and libraries. So they're not only connected to the different faculties and departments, but also connected to the colleges. A lot of the colleges have really important collections. It might not come as a surprise, but they're often not visible, certainly not publicly accessible. So on the course, as members of the university, we have special access to these places. We have behind the scenes sort of access, sessions with the curators, people who work with these objects every day. So for example, in our last session, in the last teaching block, we were looking at medieval to Baroque, and we went to the Parker Library, which has a really famous collection of medieval manuscripts and books there, sort of early modern books. We also went to look at early modern books and prints at the rare books room in the university library, and also at the old printing press at the university library. So there's sort of special sessions where you can really get up close to objects and sometimes even handle them yourself and be guided through with the experts who work with them.
Thank you. A question that I think might be most appropriate for Callie now, if I could bring her in. As a master's student, who would I reach out to for disability or welfare support?
Yeah, that's a really good, important question. So thank you. So while our MST students at ICE are matriculated, meaning that your college tutor and your college would be your first point of contact for support around welfare, we fully understand that, you know, every student is individual, and we've got a fantastic student welfare team here at ICE who are happy to hear from MST students, to listen and signpost, and just to ensure that your experience as a student with ICE is exceptional. And in addition to welfare support, welfare-based support, sorry, as an MST student, you have access to a variety of disability supports through accessibility and disability services, which offers confidential advice and support, also the disability disclosure service, which provides support with adjustments and can also support you with finding funding available to students with disability. So again, I think I'll pass a link over to Matt if you could pop that into the chat as well, with a little bit more information around disability support here at ICE, then please do have a little look at that in more detail. But again, any individual questions that you have, then please do feel free to get in touch with us in the enrolment team, and we'd be happy to support and signpost you.
Thanks, Callie. Back to Lydia, if I may. Are the advanced diplomas that are offered and run by ICE a useful background, or I guess stepping stone, for this MST?
Certainly, yes, and especially if you've not done a degree, so you've not done an arts and humanities degree where you've written a long dissertation in the arts and humanities, it's a very good stepping stone in that sort of situation. For example, the advanced diploma teaches you what research is and how to become a researcher, and so it is very good preparation, especially if you don't have those the full degree in a subject. Yeah.
Thank you. We've got a question which I'm very selfishly I'm going to take, and it's around the colleges. So do I have to apply to ICE and also separately to one of the 3 colleges you mentioned? So sorry if that wasn't clear. So when you make your application, you can specify if you have a preference for one of the 3 partner colleges that we work with. We will do our very best to allocate based on applicant preferences, but we do try and kind of balance the cohort, so we've got a good number at each college. You don't have to specify a preference, and if you don't, we will simply allocate you to one of the 3 partner colleges that we work with. Just seeing what else we've got. So a question maybe for you, Lydia. In terms of past papers, well, I guess previous papers, I think it might mean previous dissertations, but I'll check whether that answers the question. Would students have access to previous dissertations?
They don't currently. We're in the second. They haven't actually written the dissertations yet, so we're only in the second year now of our first cohort, and in our first year of the first year of our second cohort. So we haven't actually got any dissertations yet. So that won't be possible for a while. It may become possible and desirable to share sort of assignments or dissertations. It's always a bit of a sticky question, I think, because everybody's research will be very, very different, sort of one topic to the next. So I'm always in 2 minds about whether it's a good idea actually to share sort of the perfect dissertation, because the truth is there's no perfect dissertation, there's no perfect assignment. So yeah, we don't do that at the moment.
Thank you. A practical question around the structure and timing of the in-person teaching blocks. So basically, when are they? Are they, during the week or at weekends? And kind of guess linked with that is it possible to do this course entirely online? Lydia, are you happy to talk to that?
Yes, so the 4 days are all working days. There's 1 week in October, 1 in February, and 1 in sort of April, May time. And those are fixed days where everybody comes to Cambridge, and that is the sort of residency requirement, is that you are in Cambridge for those times in the first year. The reason for that is that you're fully paid up member of the university, and there are certain requirements that you have when you're a member of a college, that you are resident in residence for some of that course. The second year, it is possible, especially if you live a long way away and you can't make it to the day schools, it is possible to be online. But then again, we do strongly encourage that you come together at Madingley and see your cohort in person. So it's slightly flexible. The one-to-one supervisions in the dissertation year, they can be done online or in person, but again, the more you can do the in-person side of things, it may be the more you can get out of it, or it may be that you appreciate the flexibility of doing it online. So there is some sort of wiggle room, and it's always on a case-by-case basis, but the requirement is that you did come to Cambridge for the teaching blocks.
Thank you, Lydia. And I think it's worth pointing out that not only is it a requirement, our students consistently say it's pretty much the highlight of the course, coming and being in person in Cambridge, having a college experience. It really is. It makes the difference between doing, I guess, this course and perhaps another course elsewhere. We are coming more or less to the end of the session. I think we have pretty much covered all of the questions that have come in to date. So in which case, unless there are any last minute questions that people would like to ask, I think it's worth just flagging that Dr. Hamlett, Lydia is very happy to take any inquiries that you might have, either around the research topic of interest, or perhaps you have a particular area of art history that you're interested in. You'd like to maybe explore whether that's something that's going to be feasible to study on this master's. So please do get in touch with Lydia to discuss that. So we could just move on to the final slide now.
Yes.
So really, it just remains to say thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope that you found this session informative. Thank you all very much to all our panelists who have joined us this evening and for their contributions. We would love to hear your thoughts via our satisfaction survey, and this will be emailed to you shortly. So it really has been a pleasure to have you with us this evening. We hope that you found the session useful, that the additional resources that are available will help you in your next steps to becoming potentially a master student at ICE. So thank you again for joining us, and a very good evening from everyone here at Cambridge.
Thank you.